Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today about international inbound lead generation within the ownership of YASAD. Thanks for joining us. I see a number of attendees in software industry. Nice to see you. And let me tell about the program first. First of all, Mrs. Kamala and Mrs. Güven will make opening speech, and then we will carry on with Peter's presentation. Now, I want to share my special thanks to management of YASAD for the ownership of the webinar. Thanks a lot, Gönül Hanım. Thanks a lot, Sevil Hanım. And we can start with your speech, Gönül Hanım.
Yeah, thank you very much, Burak. And thanks for organizing this event on behalf of us. Thank you very much for coming all the way long run after long run, Hans Peter. We have been building a lot of good friendship and a lot of share. I would like to give my appreciation once again for accepting our delegation and coming to, and we're having international inbound lead generation once again today. Dear representatives of YASAD members, dear participants, thank you very much for coming and being together with us today. And I greet you with the respect and love on behalf of Software Industries Association. Welcome to our digital webinar, International Lead Generation. Dear attendees, today we will have 1 hour webinar with Hans Peter Bech, the software industry business development expert, and he is absolutely a guru. And he will be sharing with us today on how Turkish software companies, without having a big budget, can generate leads from international markets and build a pipeline for global growth. In this webinar, Hans Peter will share his experiences with global revenue generation in our industry, and using a method described in his recent great book, Going Global on Shoestring. This webinar hopefully will give all of you to attendees an introduction to the practical approach for designing and implementing activities that will get the attention of customers in other international countries. I would like to thank once again to Hans Peter for being instrumental in organizing this event, and Burak for contributing our event with moderation. We trust our webinar will help software executives on how you can produce such a content and how you can bring into the attention to your target audience. By completing my speech, I would like to give a word to our General Secretary of YASAD, Sevil Güven, for giving a short YASAD introduction and her expectation from today's event.
Thank you, Gönül. I would like to welcome also on behalf of our association. I would like to say a few words about YASAD. As we have today, I'm really happy to have international participants together with our member companies. YASAD is the leading software developers industry association in Turkey. We have more than 400 companies, and we represent a big part of the software industry. Together with our members, also we have tight connections with other industry associations like gamers associations or defense industry associations and machinery associations. And we represent an umbrella organization for the software industry in Turkey. I would like to thank Hans Peter to be with us with this second webinar. Export is always the biggest issue, biggest subject for YASAD to work with our members. Together, we see that our software developers is growing in exports overall, and we would like to learn from Hans Peter how we can get better in this issue. For myself as well, I'm very eager to hear his way of his approach to this matter. So Burak, thank you for your moderation, and I would leave the word to you and Hans Peter.
Thanks a lot, Sevilay Hanım. Well, let me introduce myself and Peter first. We provide consulting services regarding to business development, especially internationally, and successful productization processes in software industry. And Peter is an author and consultant also. He has kinds of books about international business and building successful partner channel in software industry. I want to say welcome, Peter, again. Welcome, Peter. Thanks for joining us today. Well, you know, there are kinds of marketing and lead generation methods, just like hiring a salesperson, Google Ads campaigns, etc. But these also need more investment. And today, Peter will tell about how to generate inbound leads on a small budget and by using content and LinkedIn marketing. Now, I want to leave the stage to Peter with my first question. Yes, Peter, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great. Well, Peter, in your recent book, Going Global on a Shoestring, you present a 10-step process for becoming a thought leader within your subject matter domain. You also explain how to use this position to drive quality traffic from all over the world to our website. Can you tell about these steps, please?
Yes, certainly. First of all, thank you very much for having me on your webinar channel. I've been doing business and consulting with the Turkish software industry and cooperating with YASAD for many years now. And it's always such a pleasure to be with you guys. So I have really been looking forward to sharing my experience and sharing my thoughts that I'm actually working a lot on refining these days to help companies with small budgets but great products to get some impact and generate some business. So yes, I will certainly share the 10 steps. And actually for this webinar, I have prepared a little illustration of the 10 steps. So this illustration is the first time that it's being presented. And let me just briefly take them one by one. The step number one is to select your target audience. It's no big surprise here, that's marketing 101. Step number two, learn how your customers buy. Step number three, create quality. And with quality, I mean product and company agnostic content. Step number four, build a blog. Step number five is revise and enrich your LinkedIn profile. Step number six is post and engage regularly. Step number seven is follow your potential customers. Step number eight is increase your first level network. And step number nine, interact with your network. And then finally, step number 10, take the conversation offline. These are the headlines of the 10 steps.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure listeners would like to know more about each of the steps. Can you briefly review what each step is about?
Yes, absolutely. There are 10 steps. So if I take just 2 minutes to introduce each steps, we're talking about 20 minutes. So please be patient and buckle up. But before I jump into the details, let's just move up into the helicopter and ask, why are we doing this? Why would you invest in such a 10-step process? And why would you invest in positioning yourself as an industry authority? And it's very simple. It's because we want to generate top of funnel inbound leads. There are basically two ways that you can get in touch with customers. Either you find them or they find you. This approach is supposed to help them find you. So we want potential customers to find us, and we want them to engage with us. This is the primary objective. We will also help move traffic through the funnel, but the prime objective is to create awareness and interest at the top of the funnel. So with that objective in mind, here comes the 10 steps, one by one. So step number one is select your target audience. We can also call this step identifying your ideal customer's profile. And this step is actually an integrated part of defining your business model. So you probably already have a good idea of who your ideal customers are. If you don't, then now is the time to get that. In general, I recommend that you have your business model well described before you start on the 10-step model. You will come to reuse a lot of the elements from your business model in the process that I propose. What you need to do in step one is to map the characteristics of your ideal customers to the search criteria in LinkedIn's Sales Navigator. And you heard me right. You need to subscribe to LinkedIn's Sales Navigator if you want the 10-step process to work. I'm not paid to promote LinkedIn. That's not my business. But if you're in B2B, if you develop and sell B2B software, then you need LinkedIn's Sales Navigator. If there are various versions of that service, and if you're not familiar with them, I will suggest that you start with what is called the core version of Sales Navigator. The subscription price is around $1,000 a year per user. It sounds like a lot. We use it in my company at TBK Consultant. We're very happy to pay this price. The revenue we generate through LinkedIn and using Sales Navigator justifies the cost, and we only sell books, consulting, and training. With LinkedIn's Sales Navigator, you can find companies that match your ideal customer profile. And you can find the people within those companies with whom you would like to communicate in the future because you want to convince them to buy your product. Now, we don't have the time here today to go into all the details of Sales Navigator. So if you want to learn more about it and you want somebody to help you, I can recommend you to talk to Burak, who is familiar with LinkedIn and Sales Navigator, and also to my partner here in Denmark, Steen Helmer, who is an expert in how to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator and LinkedIn in general for generating leads to software companies. So summing up step one, it's about getting access to LinkedIn's Sales Navigator and use this service to find your ideal potential customers. Step number two, so learn how your potential customers buy. Now, customers obviously don't buy exactly the same way, but still there are always some processes that are generic. The first process is what we call the buyer's journey. And a segment of the buyer's journey is the actual purchase process. So let me give you an example. This example is from what we call a replacement market. It means that your solution is replacing an existing solution that the customer currently uses. So in this example, and you can see the outer ring of the circle here, there are years. In this example, the potential customers has a 10-year buying cycle. The actual purchase process takes place in the 10th year. The preparation of the actual purchase may run for 1 or 2 years, but in the remaining 7 years, Even though the customer may be interested in your company and your product, they won't buy anything. Now, your situation may be different. Maybe you're not in a replacement market. Maybe you're in an add-on market. That means that your solution will complement something that the customer is already using. And in this case, you may not have to wait 10 years before the customers will buy. Or you may be in a new biz market where you're selling something that nobody has, and nobody knows about. And that is a completely different challenge. What we want to do here is that we want to offer information to create awareness, stimulate interest, build desire, and support action. And that is what we call the good old AIDA process. So in short, what step 2 is about is to understand what type of information is required to support the AIDA process. What type of information is required to support the buyer's journey and the purchase process. That's the objective of step number 2. Then comes step number 3. And this is where most companies struggle and many fail. To make the 10-step model work and to make any inbound lead generation process work, you need to produce a steady stream of quality content. Content is just another word for information. You need to accumulate a repository of quality content in multiple formats. So what do I mean by quality content? You see, most companies understand that they need to demonstrate or describe their products so customers will understand what they do. Therefore, companies produce product and company-centric material. Such material is often full of self-praise. It's very rosy. And that's why I call it propaganda. Now, of course, you need to present your products and your company. But to most people, such information is actually useless. Why should I be interested in your product and in your company when I'm not in a situation where I'm preparing to purchase anything, at least not in the foreseeable future? I might be in 2 years, in 3 years, and in 4 years, but right now I'm not. Therefore, what smart companies do is that they produce what I call industry-centric content. That is content discussing the problems, challenges, and opportunities within your domain that your customers are facing now and in the future, including what you do about them sort of on the general solution level. The benefit of industry-centric content is that it is relevant to customers irrespective where they are in their buying journey. At any point in time, the bulk of your potential customers are not in active purchase mode, which means that your company and your product-centric content doesn't attract their attention. Instead, they may consider it as propaganda. So achieving the status as an international recognized thought leader requires that you produce a steady stream of industry-centric content. And you can package such content into blog posts, or articles, videos, podcasts, white papers, infographics, ebooks, presentations, or some other searchable material, a PowerPoint presentation, a PDF. And it should teach the visitor something valuable in the cross-section of their problems and your area of expertise. So the bottom line here is that you need to produce a steady stream of industry-specific content. Articles, webinars, ebooks, and so on. And a lot of this content can be repackaged into these individual formats. Step number 4, build a blog. Where do you publish this content I just talked about? The rule is you do it on your blog. The blog should be a subdomain of your corporate website. The purpose of the 10-step process is to drive traffic to your website. So you want the blog to be a subdomain of your website. This is where you should post it. Having a blog as a separate subsegment of your website is an established and accepted format, and it really has some advantages also. Posting on your website gives you full control over the SEO, the search engine optimization. You can use the same tools as you use for your website on your blog. So you can use the tools that you're familiar with. If you don't do search engine optimization today, now is the time to start. This is a very important part of the model that I'm describing. The big difference between the blog and the rest of your web is the type of content posted. The blog should be product and company agnostic. It contains information from which any visitor can benefit without an urgent need for your product. Of course, you will twist the information. You will twist the content to support your position and your value propositions. But still, the blog is where you demonstrate your expertise. It's not where you praise your products and your company. After you have posted content on your blog, then you can post it and push it to other media like LinkedIn Publisher, Medium, or other places, industry blogs, but post it first on your own blog. So in short, you need to extend your corporate website with a blog. Step number 5. Enrich your LinkedIn profile. Before you start posting anything, any of the thing that I've just talked about, you should produce before you start posting any of that on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook. And before you start reaching out to potential customers, which you can do because through Sales Navigator, you can find them, you should first revise and enrich your own personal profile and then your company's profile on LinkedIn. You see, most people fill their LinkedIn profiles with what they do for their company, what they do for their employer. They actually use a very internal perspective when they develop their LinkedIn profile. Stop that. Don't do that anymore. Instead, you should use your LinkedIn profile to explain what you do for your customers. That's not so easy. And many fall back on generic platitudes such as we are helping our customers improving their bottom line, or we enable digital transformation. That's way too fluffy. Everybody can claim that, and many actually also do. Instead, be factual, offer relevant metrics and impact on key performance indicators, and use some of the industry jargon that your customers can recognize. When you start using LinkedIn to build your network, then your job title should not look like a red warning light. And what do I mean by that? Most of your potential customers are not in purchase mode. And even when they are, then the last person in the universe that they want to connect to or talk with is a salesperson. So you should not have sales in your title on LinkedIn if you're a salesperson. Sales is something you do for your company. It's not something you do for your customers. As you change your title to something more meaningful to your customers, you should also change your behavior and stop pitching to anything with a pulse. Stop yelling and start listening. You should invest time and energy in understanding how LinkedIn works. And the best resources that I have come across lately is a book by a lady called Melanie Dorado. It's called LinkedIn Unlocked. So if you want to understand the specifics of improving your profile, you can either reach out to Burak or Sten Helmer, or you can buy the book, or you can do both. So this is a little promotion that I have. Buy that book. We love our salespeople in our companies, but our potential customers, they don't. Salespeople are the last people in the world that customers want to talk to. So in short, optimize your LinkedIn profile so that it is valuable to your potential customers. If you don't know how to do it, get in touch with Burak or Sten. and read this book. Step number 6, post regularly. We're now halfway through. I hope you're still there. Now that you have this valuable content to share and you have a LinkedIn optimized customer-oriented profile, now the time is here to become active, to build awareness and to attract attention. And allow me to repeat my warning, don't spread noise and propaganda. Noise and propaganda account for over 90% of the content on social media. LinkedIn is filled with nonsense and company and product centric material and doesn't bring any business value to the readers. Company announced that they have hired a new sales manager, or excuse me, they have closed a founding round, or they're running a partner event. They promote a newsletter, they announce a free webinar, calling applications for a job, and some other thing which is internal to the company. Check your LinkedIn profile. Excuse me a second. Check your LinkedIn home feed, and you will find that most of the content is organic or paid for noise and propaganda. Your strategy should be different. Build a reputation as an international thought leader or an industry authority requires that you stop yelling and selling. Refrain from promoting your company and your product the same way that most other companies do. Stop yelling that you have great products, healthy values, awesome people, lovely customers, brilliant business partners, and generous investors. Instead, you should focus on discussing the problems and opportunities that your customers face. Unless what you do is relevant for hundreds of millions of people on LinkedIn, then you shouldn't rely on showing up in their home feeds. You're competing with cat videos, celebrities, and self-appointed social media experts. You don't stand a chance of getting the attention of your key audience this way. You should start to post regularly, say once or twice a day, but don't expect to get many likes and comments. There are tools such as Buffer and Hootsuite that can help you schedule your post, and you should use tagging. Tagging will increase the reach of your post, but only use it when it's relevant. And by the way, you don't always have to post your own content. You can also post other people's content if that is relevant for your customers. And then remember to tag them. This will always help build and promote your reputation and create more invitations to connect. And then at the end here, remember the hashtags. If you don't know what that is and how to use it, then search the term on Google and find out. Never post anything without a hashtag. The rule is 3 hashtags, not more than that. Tag when appropriate, but don't overdo them and be relevant. So what I say is, in this step number 6, post regularly, engage daily, but stay clear of propaganda. Step number 7, follow your customers. When you have your content production and posting schedule up and running, and your profile reflects your industry authority, then it is time to start following some of the people and companies that you have found through your search using LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Not everyone you will find through the Sales Navigator will be active on LinkedIn, of course not, but some will be. And you can like, comment, and share their posts and articles. That's a very good way to get their attention. From time to time, you can include a reference to content on the same subject that you or somebody else has produced. And I have a little practical tip here that I will pass on to you that very few people know about. Use a mobile device, such as an iPhone or a smartphone, sorry, and a tablet, to insert the reference link in the comment on LinkedIn and watch what will happen. Instead of just a text link, LinkedIn now generates a nice preview snippet of the post that you link to. You can delete the text link and the post will even stay there. And it looks much more like a signature element than a link. Use this referral activity with care and stay relevant. You should add value to the discussion, not interrupt or derail the discussion. And worst of all, you should not come across as spammy or salesy. As you increase your activities following other people, you will see an increase in invitations to connect. Although you're eager to expand your network, you should take a close look at each of the invitations and decide if it is relevant. LinkedIn will actually suggest to you to connect to a lot of people that are completely irrelevant to what you do. Their algorithms are not perfect. And there is no point in having a big network of people outside your target industry. If you choose to accept an invitation, then send people a welcome message. If you decline an invitation, then send people a friendly message that you have declined, but you can invite them to follow you instead. Some of them will do that, and that will increase your number of followers without devaluating the quality of your first level network. You can use such tools as text expander and snippets to have prepared messages. So you can do this activity, just take a few seconds. So summing up here, follow your potential ideal customers on LinkedIn and follow influencers and other authority people and engage with those that are active on social media, specifically on LinkedIn. Step number 8. When you have been active for a few months, enriching your profile, posting quality content, engaging with your network, and enlarging your network, then comes the time when you can apply a very productive hack. And this hack is not very well known, but I will share it with you here. There are tools available, robots, that can auto-visit selected LinkedIn profiles. When you have such a service, when you use such a service, then between 10 and 20% of those visited will look back on your profile. If you have a professional and compelling profile, then 5% will invite you to connect. Again, don't just accept the invitations. Although the Sales Navigator is a powerful tool, the search results are based on profile data that people have filled out themselves. It may not always be the truth. Only you or your assistant can decide if a person may be a relevant connection or not. So don't rely on LinkedIn's suggestions and recommendations. They are the results of automatic algorithms, and they are in no way perfect. Spending time qualifying each connection may not seem so important when you only have a few thousand connections, but still, as you approach 30,000 connections, which is the max, and I am at the max right now, then it does become an issue. And with the hack that I've just explained to you here, 30,000 connections is not unrealistic within a couple of years. So in short, use a robot to expand your first level network with quality connections. Step number 9, we're almost through. Just 2 more steps to go. Interact individually. With a growing network and growing repository of quality content, you should keep the conversations going. Don't waste your time on your home feed. It's where LinkedIn's algorithm posts messages from advertisers and other users. Based on what shows up in my home feed, LinkedIn is not doing a good job. You can judge for yourself what you think. Instead, you should use Sales Navigator, because in Sales Navigator, you can decide exactly whose post you want to follow. And you don't want to follow millions of people's posts. You only want to follow those that are from your potential customers. So keep in mind that although LinkedIn is the home of millions of professionals, not all of them are active. When you're posting something, only a tiny fraction of your network will see it. And there are two reasons why. The first reason, obviously, is that they're not on LinkedIn at the time where you post. That happens often if you're in different time zones. And if you do international lead generations, you will be in different time zones. So by using a scheduling tool such as Buffer or Hootsuite, they can help you post at times where you actually are at sleep. The second reason is that LinkedIn deliberately exposes your post to only a fraction of your connections. I think it's around 100. And if the post doesn't get any major engagement within the first couple of hours, then LinkedIn will kill the visibility of your post. So if you only have a small target group, say less than 10 million people, and your post is about a niche issue, an industry issue, then it is unlikely that you'll get enough organic engagement for LinkedIn to boost it. The smaller your market is, the bigger the deals you do, the more personal and the more specific you should be in the content you share. Narrowing your focus on single companies is called account-based marketing. And Sales Navigator is an excellent tool for you to do account-based marketing. You can actually pay LinkedIn to post your content in the feeds of certain people by name and by company. You can also find these individuals yourself and initiate the contact and the conversations. So you can use robots to send personalized direct messages to first level connections. I actually do that from time to time. You should be very careful. When you do something like this, use a robot to send, let's say, 1,000 or 2,000 messages to your first line connections. You really need to have something that has genuine value to the recipient, and you shouldn't do it too often. Never use direct messages for solicitation, and don't ask people you don't know to do your favors. If you want someone to do something for you, do something for them first. And that's very easy on LinkedIn because you can like people's posts, you can comment, you can appraise. There's a lot of opportunities for you to do favors for other people before you expect them to do favors for you. So in short, interact with your first level connections and use LinkedIn hacks and robots that are available. Burak and Sten Helmer can help you how to use those robots so you don't get punished by LinkedIn, because it is actually against their rules. And now the last step. This is step number 10. If your revenue generation process requires you to have an individual conversation with potential customers, and it very often does, then that relationship and conversation must go offline at some time. A first step in bringing a conversation offline could be to offer webinars. That's where you can have an interaction on a very informal basis. After the presentation or the interview, then you can open up for the Q&A. And you can invite the participants to send their questions as personal messages. And then you have a connection. We will do that in this webinar. You can send in your questions to Burak, and we will look at them and we will answer them later on. Again, I strongly recommend that you distinguish clearly between your product promotion and your thought leadership webinars. It's legitimate to offer product presentations and product demonstrations. That's fine, but don't dress them up as anything else. There are times when people look for inspiration, and there are times when they look for solutions and products. Serve those two needs separately. To which extent you want to chase individual one-on-one calls depends on the situation and your value proposition. If you are successful in using my 10-step method and can establish yourself as an industry authority, then you will find that you begin to receive inbound leads. People start to write to you and to call you. And that's a good indicator, obviously, that your method works. In short, make yourself available for one-on-one conversation and start by offering webinars. So thank you for your patience. This was the summary of the 10 steps, and I hope that everyone is still awake.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Actually, I think this very clear path to create awareness and get attention from potential customers, especially in B2B business. And let me tell attendees, hope you are able to note the steps. If not, we will share the webinar recording after that, so you can watch later. Another question, Peter, what kind of resources and organization does your method require?
That's a good question. And I've been thinking a lot about that. Any company selling B2B software-based solutions needs these functions that I'm showing here to achieve predictable and scalable revenue generation processes. You need business development, marketing, sales development, sales and customer success. There are two main types of activities required for my 10-step method. Activity one is to develop and produce the content. And the activity number two is to post and engage on social media, especially on LinkedIn. So let's start with activity one. That's the content production and the content creation. I think you will need somebody internally, or if you don't have anybody internally, then externally, of course, that can plan and produce the content. Interview your people and then write based on those interviews. This resource belongs in the marketing department. And it doesn't need to be a full-time equivalent, but I believe that you need a full-time equivalent, let me say 2 or 3 people, to produce a steady stream of quality content. So one headcount. You can have several part-time people allocated, but in total, I think it's a full-time equivalent that you need. Most companies leave video and podcast production to external parties. But I think today, with the technology available, you can do it in-house. Using myself as an example, I produce all my videos in-house, and I produce all my podcasts in-house. I have a little studio with some equipment where I do that. I also do customer case stories for some of my clients. And there we go to the client's site, and I use an external videographer, a photographer for that. But for things that are not related to customers' interviews, you can do that internally. It requires a little investment, but I believe for $1,000 or $2,000, you can set up an internal studio, and it becomes much easier and much faster to produce content. It doesn't need to be cinematic. You're not Walt Disney. The content, the authority, the authenticity of your content is much more important than the wrapping. So that's why I believe you can do it in-house. The second engagement, posting and engagement on social media, should be done by the marketing department, by the sales development representatives, and by the account executives, by the salespeople. Eventually you want the sales development representatives or the account executive, the salespeople, you want them to own the relationships. So it makes sense that they drive the communication with the potential customers and use their profiles to do that. So you need to train them. You need to train them how to do this posting. You need to give them access to Buffer or Hootsuite, so that they can post regularly. So in terms of resources, I don't think that this requires additional resources. This is something that your salespeople should do as part of their job. But it obviously requires that they learn how to do it. So to answer your question, I don't think that posting and engaging should require any additional resources, but it does require that you train your staff the new skills.
Great. What about language, Peter? Do we need to make the content available in more languages, or is English enough?
Another good question. That depends on the type of product you're offering. If you, for example, want to sell ERP systems in Germany, then you need to communicate in German. If you want to sell CRM systems in France, you need to communicate in French. In general, I would say that the more local information, the more local competition you face, and the smaller the companies you sell to, the more you're required to communicate in the local language. If you offer something that is not readily available in the market, or you sell to bigger companies or specialized companies, then my recommendation is to start in English. There are more than 1 billion people in the world using English either as their first or their second language. There are people in all countries that are ready to do business in English and obviously are capable to read and understand English. The more niche your product is, the more likely it is that English will get you a long way.
Thanks a lot. The time is running and we need to wrap up, I think. But I have one final question, Peter.
Yeah, sorry.
How long will it take to get the 10-step method implemented? How long
that
does
was
it
my
take?
next step. Yeah, we have prepared this question. It takes 3 months. If you have the people available to do the content production, those are the critical resources here. It will take 3 months for them to produce enough content to get going. In the meantime, you will need to train your salespeople and your marketing people on how to post on LinkedIn and use the tools that I've talked about. You can do that in parallel so that you can actually, after 3 months, you should be able to kick off this activity and get going. It may take longer, it may take shorter, but I think 3 months is a realistic guess. You should aim at releasing 1 new article or podcast or video or ebook or some other format each week. But remember, it doesn't mean that you need to produce an original piece of content every week. You can take an article that you did last week and reformat that into a podcast that you released this week, and then reformat that into a video that you then release the week after. Why do you do this? You do this because people consume content differently. Some people are reading oriented. I am very reading oriented. Some people are listening oriented. They go for podcasts. Some people are visually oriented. They would rather watch a video. So by repurposing your content into various formats, you reach a much broader segment of your target audience with exactly the same content. That is a perfect way of extending the value of the content that you produce. So summing up here, it will take 3 months to get going, and you should aim at publishing at least once a week after you start.
Okay, great. Peter, thanks a lot. I think the time is over. Before closing, Sevilay, would you like to say something about that?
Yes, sure. I think we have a question here.
Okay.
Burak, if you can have it.
Well, let's check out. Actually, instead of usual Q&A session at the end of the webinar, Hans Peter has promised to answer the questions you may have in a separate post that you can all review. But we have a question, and what about the answer, Peter? Can we check?
There's sure.
Question from Arif.
Sure, we can take questions, but there's only so many minutes left. So we'll give everybody the opportunity to send us your questions. You can even do it in Turkish to Burak, and we will review the questions and we will provide an answer that everybody can see. Because very often at the end of a webinar, people are still, congesting and consuming the information, and the questions will pop up later. And we think it's a shame that people don't have the opportunity to think over what they've heard and then come up with their questions.
Okay, great.
But if there is a question right now, I'll obviously be happy to see if I can answer it.
Yes, there's a question from Arif. Thanks a lot, Arif, for the question. What are the favorite automated or other supportive tools to combine with LinkedIn Sales Navigator?
It's the tool that I use is Dux Soup. DUX and then soup as the soup you eat in the wintertime. That's a very powerful tool. Then I used to use Hootsuite. I'm now shifted to Buffer, which is my scheduling tool. I also have an international market. I sell my consulting services and training and books all over the world. So I need to post in various time zones. So I use Buffer to do that. And Buffer, you can have an account with all your employees in Buffer. So everybody can then post from Buffer to their various profiles.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Another comment and question from Gökhan Bey. Thanks for it, Gökhan Bey. Excellent presentation. Thank you, Hans. His comments. What about using outsourced marketing resources or companies to create that kind of processes? What is the pros and cons?
You can do that. The reason that I started by recommending that you do it in-house is that you need someone with whom you have a long-term relationship. Because people who write quality content really need to understand your products and your customers and the market you operate. So there is an investment in learning about your domain. So you need to build a long-term relationship with people to write quality content. Otherwise, the articles and the content will be too thin, too superfluous. But if you do that, you can definitely use external resources. Basically, there's no difference between an internal and an external resources. It's all people, you know. It's people who listen and write and do the work. So whether they're on your payroll or not is not really important. You just need to maintain that long-term relationship.
Yes, great. Thanks a lot. And is there any question, or we can close the session slowly?
Yeah, otherwise just send your questions and we'll be happy to
of course,
answer them.
if you have questions, then please send them to me and I will put them together for Peter. And if you want more information on how to grow your business internationally and through resellers, Hans Peter has a host of books, videos, podcasts, and articles available. They can be found on this website. On his website. And thanks for joining us today. Hope all you enjoy the event and find it beneficial. Lastly, again, let me share my special thanks to management of YASAD.
Well, we thank you, Burak, for setting up the webinar with Hans. Thank you very much, Hans. I have taken a lot of lessons for myself and for my team as well, as we are doing also LinkedIn posts. We never thought of scheduling them, but it's a very good idea. I hope it will be very useful for all our members and participants, as we are all in LinkedIn, but we should use it for creating inbound leads as well. And we have to take care of what we are really showing ourselves to the external world. Thank you very much for this instructive webinar. And we hope to see you in the future with other topics.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Thank you. Thank you, Burak.
Thank you.